And I am honored to have this panel discussion today with some very special, very brave and courageous people who actually did that leap of faith and did take a career break. So let me introduce the panelists. We have 4 people today on the panel. 2 of them were brave enough to take the structured career break, the gap year. That is Lisa, who after years of achieving targets and milestones, she chose to step back from her thriving career at PlayStation. And from a corporate analyst, she turned into an entrepreneur, and now Lisa is 6 months into her sabbatical. So I would like to ask the question to our gap yearists. What was the tipping point? When was the moment that you realized, yes, I have to go on a gap year? Lisa, please.
Yeah. All right. So I feel like before I actually answer this question, I need to give everyone a little bit of background. I think it's gonna really help to understand my journey and what was the tipping point. So I arrived to the US 8 years ago to study financial mathematics. So I got a scholarship to do that, and I have traveled most of my conscious life. So I didn't really have a place to return to. I didn't really have a place to call home. So I really needed to stay in the US. And basically, I started my career in private equity. But after 8 months, I realized that that's something way too intense. And basically, afterwards, I joined PlayStation, who sponsored my H-1B visas and then sponsored my green card. And that's where I stayed for 5.5 years before I left. So what have happened is that the company is actually amazing, but what I realized is that the corporate world with all its structure, its bureaucracy, didn't really work for me. And being a high achieving person who really needed this corporate job to stay in the country and also to be able to earn some capital to really have time to think what I want to do, I worked really hard and I started to see some physical symptoms. So first, I got really crazy allergies, migraines, and then I think 2 years before I quit, I started to get some neurological issues, and doctors couldn't really understand what was going on. But basically, at a ripe age of 30, my body was really falling apart, like completely. It really started to stop functioning. And I also realized that while I did like what I do to some extent, it wasn't really driving me. It wasn't really motivating me on a deeper level. So 2 years before I quit, my husband and I started a company. It was a pet products company, so completely unrelated to tech and to what I was doing. So we've been running and building that business and both working full-time at the same time, which also led to really crazy burnout. So on one hand, I was really doing something that I liked, but then I had my corporate world to had that like finances flowing in, and it was a burnout. I had signs of depression, and basically all of that just led me to a tipping point when I realized I just can't do it anymore. My mental self can't handle it, and my physical body shuts off. So I realized that my life could be finite, and it's a really sad realization to have, because based on what Tevi was saying, like I didn't just take it like very structurally and ahead of time. I actually decided to take this leap when I reached the point when I just couldn't do it any longer. Like my mental self couldn't do it any longer, and my physical self couldn't do it any longer. So I decided to take this leap of faith and to really focus on the business, start everything from scratch to be able to scale and really let my body recover. So yes, that's the story.
Thank you, Lisa. And that's quite a scary story, I must admit.
Yes.
And Dan shared with us his biggest fears and doubts about taking the career break. What were yours? Was it also the lack of, self-identity or looking for self-identity, or were there any other ones?
So there were a few. So the first one about identity. I didn't really identify with my job fully. I was building the business. I like to do a lot of things, but my ego did associate with my job. So my job was considered prestigious. And when I heard people saying, oh, I would never say that, looking at you, that you work over there, I like that. So my ego identity was feeding of that. And I really liked, oh my God, how cool. I surprise people. That's my like business card. It's like I work at that company, that says something about me. I have many of those like other sides, but this really fed me a lot. So it was, I guess it was really challenging to accept because I'm still in the process of building the business. Like we had it running for a while, we had some successes, some failures, and now I decided to rebuild it from scratch. So I cannot really call myself an entrepreneur yet because I don't have like the revenues and a lot of things to show. I'm in the process, right? So a challenge for me actually was to call myself unemployed. And I feel like it was really liberating because especially when my husband and I go to dinners with his co-workers, it's like, oh, what do you do? And I'm like, well, I'm unemployed. And that really helped me to dissociate my ego from my job. And I realized my value is not really like in my job. And when I say people like I'm unemployed, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're gonna perceive me in a worse way. There are a lot more to my personality. I could be kind, there could be a lot of other characteristics that I bring to the world. And just accepting that, I feel like that was like a really big breakthrough. And coming back to the fears, the second fear was always financial, because how can I afford this break, right? I don't want to generate an income now. I have savings. I ensured that I have 2 years worth of savings to really have the time to build the business, get the revenue going, right? But it was still a fear because we got used to having that constant stream of income coming in and just living off savings, which are finite. It's still scary, right? Because what if it doesn't work out? A lot of doubts are coming in. So I think those were the two major ones I had to experience.
Elisa, I would really like to ask you for advice to give to people who are considering a gap year on how to make this sabbatical really a growth year for you. So our platform is called the growth year for not for no reason. We really believe that this is investing in yourself. So what would you advise to really make it a success, make it a growth year?
I feel like it's planning ahead and getting help and working with coaches, working psychologists to, before you leave, actually understand what you want to do, kind of aligning deeply with yourself, with your soul. I mean, one strategy that really helped me is like, what did I like doing as a child? Like, what really resonated with me? And I was playing with like dogs. I love dogs. I'm obsessed with dogs, right? And like when I was working, my full-time job, I started a pet care products company, and like that was completely unrelated to everything I studied, everything I done. But I knew I love dogs, and I wanted to do something with that, right? So just figuring that out, working with a coach, asking yourself questions, and sometimes it's not easy to admit, right, what you like. I'm like, I studied mathematics. I spent like 15 years of my life just working with data, hard numbers. And now I need to accept that I want to work with dogs, and I always wanted, and I didn't need that education whatsoever actually for what I want to do, right? So it's not that easy to go deep inside, but I feel like to make the growth year successful is like that alignment with yourself and really being truthful to yourself, because we don't like, we lie to ourselves unconsciously because there is this resistance in accepting who we really are. So I feel like just getting help, figuring it out. And then the next step is making a plan, how you can make that internal longing like a reality for you, right? How you can apply it to the real world and how you can just give it a try, right? Whether it's a new career, a new education, like what can it be? So yes, I feel like first step, just align with yourself and then plan it out and take a leap.